Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Cerebral conversations on disability liberation and integration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cerebral Conversations, episode 11. This is Cerebral Conversations, conversations on disability liberation and integration. I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Rockin' Ron Jackson.
Rockin' Ron Jackson.
Yes.
Let's get
Cerebral.
boom. So, tell me about your week.
Well, this week I made a pretty big decision about my life. I decided to drop out of college.
You are a college dropout.
Yes, I am.
Going Kanye West style.
Yes.
So, are you planning to become a media mogul and an entrepreneur?
I don't know about all that. An entrepreneur would be nice. But given the apartment we live in, I don't think that's going to happen.
It's kind of against the rules to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, so...
In the building. So what was the reasoning behind this dropout?
I basically chose to drop out for two reasons. One is because I simply don't have the time to devote to my studies that I need to do well anymore. And two, I was lied to by the university as far as what my degree would allow me to do, so I no longer need to put myself through all the headaches.
Dang, shame on you, University of Phoenix.
No more learning teams.
So, now that you're no longer a Phoenix, are you still going to rise from the ashes? What's kind of your next step?
Right now I'm going to relax and decompress from studying for 3 years, and then I'm going to start looking for possible jobs and see what that entails.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be weird because, you've been a Phoenix ever since I've known you.
Yes. I already feel kind of weird because I have nothing to do every day, so...
Uh-oh. Looks like somebody's going to start LARPing.
It's nice, but it's a little weird.
You should start LARPing. Live action role play. Start swinging swords.
Daniel would be all about that.
They don't know who Daniel is.
I'm pretty sure.
They don't know who Daniel is. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. We love you.
Yeah, so, see my arm?
Yes. What happened there?
Well, I was hanging out at the Over the Rainbow headquarters, which our fans wouldn't know this, but our building is owned by a not-for-profit called the Over the Rainbow Association, which is headquartered in Evanston, Illinois. And I get the awesome opportunity to periodically hang out down there and help them with certain things. And they're doing this bike ride. They do a bike ride every year, which is a big fundraiser for them. And for those of you that don't know, Over the Rainbow facilitates completely accessible and barrier-free apartments for crippled brothers and sisters. And they're a really great organization. There's nothing like them I've ever encountered. So you should check them out on their website or on their Facebook page. So anyways, they asked me to be a part of this bike ride, and there's this really awesome business called Adaptive Adventures, which does a lot of physical activities and adapts them for crippled brothers and sisters. So I was on this incumbent hand tricycle, and I just took a sharp turn and just ate it hard. It felt awesome though. And after that, I had a really great conversation and did kind of a on-camera interview with the staff and just talked about disability liberation and integration a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're a few of the staff members are going to check out the show. They're excited to see Ron Jackson in action.
Way to go, OTR. Way to go.
Yeah, so like I said, check them out on Facebook, especially if you're a crippled brother or sister who's looking for an accessible place to live in the Chicago area. I highly suggest OTR. Also, if you're an able-bodied brother or sister, I can't think of a better local grassroots organization to really get involved with. So we are continuing our series on disability and education.
Yes, we are.
And we are talking about what this week?
Lovely high school.
The high school years, the wonder years.
Yes.
Oh, what would you do if I sing out of tune?
You sing out of tune all the time. What do you mean?
That hurts.
Just kidding.
So, why don't we start off with what was your high school experience like?
Well, my high school experience was actually pretty similar to middle school because I followed a lot of the same people and I even had the same principal. So I kind of knew how the school would be run and things like that.
So you felt like it was a smooth transition?
I felt like it was, although it's not smooth for a lot of people. But I felt like I had a pretty good handle on it relatively early.
What kind of things were you involved with in high school?
I was involved with the Spanish club. I was involved with yearbook for a little bit. I was involved with the powder puff thing.
Isn't that like where they do the whole role reversal where the cheerleaders
play football and the guys cheerlead, yeah.
Were you like the head cheerleader?
No, I just organized it all.
Gotcha.
I was pretty popular in high school just because everyone in my classes realized how smart I was, or they thought I was smart, and they all wanted me to be in their group when we had group projects to do in class.
You were that guy.
I was that guy.
So you had an overall positive experience in
Yes,
high school?
I did.
Okay, awesome. I would say for me, the first 2 years of high school were some of the toughest in my life. I mean, not only was I dealing with just personal issues with depression and other such things, but since I had a rough time in middle school as well, that really set me up to have a rough transition from middle school to high school. At the same time, I had a really tough time getting in socially, and I saw the gap between my able-bodied classmates and myself just grow wider and wider during the first 2 years of high school. Shortly, but as I got into my upperclassmen years, and also I had some really great able-bodied friends that I've kind of spoken a little bit about, and I got really involved in my local music scene. That really helped propel me into certain areas. Also, I really kicked my butt into gear as far as academically. I was a pretty average student until my last 2 years, and then I really started to push myself to new levels. And partially that was as I discovered my love of writing. I got heavily involved in newspaper, and I won some awards and things like that. And also I just, I felt really prepared, and I felt like I found my calling in pastoral work, and I had some dreams and aspirations to go into Bible college and things like that. It's one of those things I was really glad for high school to be over And I keep thinking, man, what if those first 2 years would have been as good as my last 2 years? Where would I be today?
It's definitely something to reflect on as we get older.
And I think that kind of leads into high school. It becomes critical for a crippled brother or sister to start having identity awareness and start building up some personal confidence, or as Maslow liked to say, head into self actualization or towards self actualization. Uh, I know that you and I chatted really briefly, but you can really have a tough time in middle school. But if your high school is prepared to uh, with proper facilitations, the gaps that you experience earlier in life can be jump started, and you can have a really great high school experience that will set you up to be successful as you seek out higher education or you go into the job market.
And I feel like the opposite is true, where if your high school isn't as prepared as your middle school was, like in my case, it might set you back if you aren't prepared to handle that.
Yeah, it's hard, and we're gonna touch on this a little bit later, but a lot of the way that public school is set up around disability is anytime that that a crippled brother or sister doesn't fit into an able-bodied mold of the classroom, and this even goes for able-bodied people. And we're going to have an episode on alternative education and special education in this series, but you just get thrown into the special education tract.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in a lot of ways, can set you up for a very tough life in adulthood. Uh, so, a lot of this is centered around a liberatory understanding of disability, which most people don't even have a grasp of. But let's really get into the special education tract problem. Were you thrown into special ed?
No, I wasn't. I was lucky enough to avoid special ed all through school, so I don't have a personal idea of what it's like, but I had friends that were in special ed and they were not happy with the classes at all because they did not feel as though they were learning enough to be productive members of the workforce once high school was over.
Yeah, I wasn't thrown into like in the state of Illinois, there's varying kind of stages of special education, and I wasn't thrown into like you're completely separated, but I had what was called resource education, which is like there were certain classes where I was kind of put into remedial levels of of the classroom. Um, like I said, in math, I most certainly deserved it, but also sometimes I was just thrown into like an English class just because I couldn't keep up with notes or I couldn't write out an essay longhand. And I remember my freshman year, I was in a normal, um, average English class. I got straight B's, and then I was thrown into special education, English, and I ended up being so good at their special education curriculum that the teacher had me stop doing work because I was discouraging all of the other students, and so I stopped doing work and still passed the class with 150%. Uh, And it really set me up for failure in a lot of ways because then to get out of special education, I had to go into what was called inclusion, which was I was then put into, as a junior, I was put into a sophomore class, and I was I had basically like a special education teacher that would make sure that I was learning everything properly. But it was stuff that I already went through the year before, and so I never got to do junior English. I never got to do like the state required junior English midterm paper. I never got to go into higher uh, like the set you up for college courses type of environment that my peers were a part of.
So you stopped at junior level English?
I didn't even technically get to junior level English.
I didn't know.
I stopped at sophomore level English. I mean, I feel like I have a good grasp of English. My grammar work could definitely, you know, definitely use a kick up because I haven't really used a lot of proper grammar in writing in a long time. So that's one of the struggles I have with writing my book. Uh, yeah, so that really just set me up for a lot of trouble. So what was the transition from you uh, going through high school and then looking ahead towards college? Did you feel like that the staff and faculty of your school really helped you in that process?
I felt like the transition from high school into college was a big hindrance because nobody believed that I could actually go to college on my own. So when I applied to the University of Illinois and the University of Southern Illinois, my high school counselor told me that I shouldn't have done that because I would never get in, and I was just setting myself up for failure. A month later, I got accepted to both schools, so that felt pretty good.
Suck it, guidance counselor.
And she profusely apologized, which was awesome. Um, I just didn't feel like they didn't give me a chance to even see if I could do some of those things without preconceived notions of how other people with disabilities had done in the past. So it was hard for me to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. I had a similar experience where I didn't really talk to my guidance counselor or see my guidance counselor for the entire 4 years I was in high school, except for one time when they thought that I was suicidal, and that was a really brief conversation. And I remember setting up my appointment to talk about college, and I expected to come into the office and just see, like a plethora of college brochures and all the options laid out before me. And I come in there and I see a stack of forms to set me up to get on SSI and to get in an apartment, um, and to like go on food stamps. And I was like, well, what about college? And I was told, well, college probably isn't a realistic thing for you, and you probably won't do well, similar to what you had.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember feeling like I was told that if I worked hard, I could go to college. Like, that's what you're told as a kid, and I didn't get that. Um, and I think a lot of it just had to do with being thrown in the special ed tract and people having a definition of what disability and success looks like. And the whole idea of the welfare state, I think, is perpetuated by this understanding by high schools around the country because our experience with trying to get into college, unfortunately, isn't an uncommon one among our brothers and sisters.
I've heard many stories that are very similar to what we just said from countless people that I've run across over the past decade. So it's not just us.
I think that's important for if there's teachers watching this or school administrators, especially in the special education field, that you need to understand that the expectations that you put on us do set your students on a certain path. And if you have a problem with the way that disability is viewed, then you need to bring that out in your classroom and start thinking about ideas of a liberatory understanding, which is that means that it is an understanding of disability that isn't a hindrance. It isn't based upon the lack of ability, but it's based on the understanding of the need for facilitation within our society to make each individual work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to wrap up this episode. This is episode 11, and we'll be hitting you with a special episode number 12. We're just moving on up.
Yep.
We're talking about college, higher learning.
Higher Learning. That was a great movie, by the way.
One of my favorites.
Yes, we're talking about college and the problems that a crippled brothers and sisters might run into when they try to go to college and try to pay for college.
Definitely. So you can also share your high school, your middle school stories, or any other stories you have by emailing us at cerebralconversations@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter and follow us at Cerebral Convos. And our Facebook page is always a great place to have a conversation. That's facebook.com/cerebralconversations. You can also follow my personal blog, The Running Surge, at cjcampbell.tumblr.com. And
you can find me on Facebook at Ron Jackson because I'm on there all day now since I have no school.
He needs the friendship.
I need friendship.
All right, so we will check you later. And remember, keep it cerebral.
Peace.